I guess we should share a bit of who we are. So we're Lee and Michelle. We've been married coming up 24 years. We have 3 adult children. And I guess I'll just share just points of our race that have got us to this point so far. Because we never thought we'd be in this situation. Okay, so back in 2005, we went on our very first family holiday to Indonesia, because that's where you go when you're from WA. Fell in love with the people and thought, okay, every 7 years we might do a family holiday to Indonesia. Anyway, 2 years later, we found ourselves at YWAM. I'm not sure if you're familiar with YWAM, but so you go on, you do your lecture, and then you go on outreach, and the outreach phase was offered as Africa, and I know personally I thought, Africa, I've always wanted to go to Africa, that's it. And then the next one was Thailand, which they were working with, just checking who's here, kids in the red light district. And I remember Lee and I glanced at each other and just thought, oh, these kids need a voice, that's where we have to go, has to be Thailand, don't worry about Africa. And then they presented Indonesia, and I remember thinking, Indonesia, that's our next door neighbour, we're not going there. And it was community development, just boring, not for us. And then we had to go away and pray about it separately and then meet up together. And it was clearly we were meant to go to Indonesia. And I thought, well, Lord, that's not going to work, because Lee and I looked at each other for the kids, you know, the kids need a voice, they really need a voice. Anyway, I met back up with Lee, and Lee looked at me and he said, it's Indonesia. I went, oh, okay, we're a team still, we're not separated. And then last year, so we always thought we'd do some sort of missions work. We actually thought it would be with an unreached people group, because that sort of just gave us that spark in our hearts. Anyway, last year...
Michelle did. I was happy just to go through life.
No.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so anyway, I sent out just a few emails to NGOs. I'd always been interested in Christian groups, because that's the basis of anything we do. But for some reason, I sent it out to NGOs, and Compassion First got back to me, which they never do, apparently, but they got back to me, and they're fully Christian. And they invited us over to one of their houses, or both their houses. They've got a house in Java and a house in Sulawesi. And
which they also never do.
Yeah, they stop people at that first contact because of the nature of the job. They just don't want volunteers. They don't want sticky beakers. So it was incredible that we got invited, and just meeting the staff at the first house, and you know, when your spirit leaps within you, you know that it's a God thing, it's not human. They were having a prayer session, and I couldn't understand what they were saying. They were speaking in Indonesian, but it got me deep inside. And anyway, I didn't say anything to Lee, and they asked us if we would be willing to join them for 3 months of every year. And again, I said nothing, and you said yes. And then just before Christmas last year, they sent us an email and said, this is a really long shot, but would you be willing to go full-time with us? And I said nothing, and I looked at you, and you said, let's do it.
Yeah. So, I must admit that there's so many things along the way where I would normally have just been so anti, just certain things as we've been going through the thing, but for some reason I just couldn't shake it, and it's just been one after another. We talk about, the world will say coincidences, but it just feels like, and we know it's better than that, it's God ordained moments, or meetings, or relationships that you make, and it's been like that the whole way through. People I would never usually have connected with. I'm talking about Americans here, and it's just American organisations. I would have usually said to Michelle, no, there's plenty of Australian organisations. Why are we dealing with American organisation? It's just logistically hard, but just each step seems to have fallen in place, and that includes the meeting with you guys. And it's just each even if I feel like I waver slightly over time when there's a gap in contact or whatever, it just takes another thing like that, and I can now include today, where it just just seems to all come back together, and we just know beyond a shadow of doubt that we're doing the right thing. So like I said, there's been lots of places where usually I would just sort of turn the other way, or sort of try to get out of it, but it doesn't seem like we can, unfortunately, or fortunately. But
well, originally they asked us if we'd go to Java, and we said yes. And anyway, now they want us in Bali, which is an unreached people group. If you look at the Joshua Project, Bali's still very much in the red. So I'll just quickly tell you about Compassion First, which is the organisation we're joining with. They're an anti-trafficking organisation in Indonesia. They work with prevention, rescue and aftercare. I've written this so I don't forget. Prevention, they work with a lot of at-risk children. There's a few cemetery communities where families or single mums and their kids, they live in the cemeteries. It's
like the poor of the poor. Like if you can't afford to be in a village, or you're outcast from a village, then the cemeteries is where they come together to live, basically, and it becomes a community in the cemetery. I guess a bit like an Indian slum or something like that. Yeah.
So they do a lot of work in the communities there, and it might be on the video actually. Anyway, they rescue kids as well, which I could picture Lee rescuing kids, but that's not what we're called to do. And they provide a lot of aftercare as well, which is years and years, and there's a whole lot invested in the aftercare because that's really important. Most kids that are rescued end up running back to, for want of a better word, their trade, but not with Compassion First. They have, I think...
Yeah, a lot stricter. This is one of the things that impressed me. A lot stricter protocols. I mean, you can go in as an organisation to say Indonesia, and you can grab every girl that you see that's in this situation, and there are a lot of them, a lot more than we realise. But unless there's something in place for these girls, inevitably they just end up back where they came from, and that's the impressive thing about Compassion First. They may not get the numbers, I guess, that some other organisations get, but their success rate, it sounds like we're talking about money, but it's not that. Their success rate is really high because they get these girls to the other end. I mean, they put them, if they're uni inclined, they'll put them through university. If they're...
actually, a lot of these girls don't have dreams. You ask them, what do you want to do? What would you like? They've got nothing. Their head's not in that place where they can dream for themselves.
It's a survival mode, I guess.
Yeah, so they look after these girls until they can dream of what they want to do. So right now they've got, just right now, so I can't talk about the history, but right now they've got someone in medical school, someone in nursing school, someone at Bible college, and they're just hoping to fund two more girls into college for this year, or next year, I should say. So they provide amazing aftercare. They've got their house, Sarah's house in Sulawesi, they've got Grace House in Java. They partner with other organisations, and they have a couple of transition houses. So once the girls have graduated the program, they can move into a transition house before they enter living on their own in the communities again.
So these girls are mostly taken... Where Bali comes involved is Bali generally don't use... Bali, if you don't know, is a Hindu country amongst Muslim Indonesia, and they generally don't use their own girls. So most of the girls that are trafficked into Bali are from all the islands, which makes it even harder for the girls because they're away from what they know and what they're in. And the sad thing is, I'm probably bouncing around here, but a lot of these girls are put into this position and from their own families, because their families, they need money to survive. So a family, for want of a better word, will sacrifice one child to support the family. It's the saddest situation, and you can go to Bali and not see any of this. I guess most people do, but it's so rife. It's so rife. Bali is the hot spot because that's where the tourists are. But it's so rife, and I won't go into all the details you can probably imagine the worst of them, and you'll be closed. It's horrible what happens to. I mean, for this to be happening to anyone is bad enough, but to happen to a young girl it's heartbreaking, and I guess that's.
Maybe we should just sit and let you take over.